Ladies and gentlemen, the most boring topic that we could potentially come up with, we have come up with, and that is of election posters. For those of you who watch our show, you may recall that we did comment that it seems a bit weird. We're, 5 weeks away from elections, and the ANC's posters haven't really been seen anywhere, which is in contrast to previous years, where they spent millions on posters and nearly got Loot Freely House expropriated as a result of that. But this time around, their posters are pretty much absent. Well, this becomes interesting because the ANC's head of elections has now come out and admitted that they have been quote unquote napping when it comes through to the May general elections and that they haven't really campaigned that well. What do you think of this, Ramon?
I think it's really odd. I mean, the ANC tried so hard not to have any debt going into this election, and they had money for this election campaign. Remember, Iran paid them like R1 billion to go to International Criminal Court of Justice against Israel. And they said, we had R1 billion of debt 6 months ago. We almost got liquidated, but now we paid all our debts, and now we've got money for a campaign. Very suspicious. But it seems like even that money has either been stolen, has been not used correctly, or they have run out of it, because their argument is there's so many new political parties on the scene that all those people have sort of used up the poster quota. There's no more materials required to make posters. Which, I mean, yes, the election ballot is the longest one ever, but what a piss poor bloody excuse for that. It really is. To me, ANC doesn't give a shit about winning this election. Simple as that.
Yeah, it's really peculiar because if you actually ask the ANC Treasurer General, the guy who's responsible for not paying things for the ANC, he says that the reason the ANC hasn't actually gone out with these mass posters everywhere is because they had a cost savings approach. For those of you who were living under a rock, last time they had an election, the ANC used billions, millions and millions, hundreds of millions to get posters everywhere in KZN. And they didn't pay for them because it's the ANC way. And that nearly got them bankrupt. Well, this time they said, they're not actually going to do it. That kind of has some merit, Ramon. But here's the problem. In an election in South Africa, posters, political posters, are actually seen as a sign of might. The more posters you have, the stronger and the mightier a party you are. So if you really want to make yourself look like the big cheese in town, you have the biggest quantity of posters, right? I mean, this is why Razm Zamzi has gone out everywhere and posted their posters everywhere. But this time around, the ANC hasn't taken that approach. Is this possibly because the ANC, one of two things, potentially doesn't want to win the election, maybe doesn't actually want to be that powerful, because they aren't, and maybe it's a sign of a fractured or weakened ANC?
Well, interestingly, the DA has come out to say that they have printed out 1.3 million posters for this election. Each board costs 20 Rand, and the poster itself is 15 Rand. So 35 Rand times 1.3 million is, 15 million Rand on posters, which is a lot of money, but it's not that much money. If Iran gives you R1 billion, 50 million bucks on posters is not a lot. It's less money than you charged in 2019 when that company that you didn't pay almost liquidated the ANC, because they were owning that company close to 100 million Rand at the time for the posters in 2019. So I think the ANC is cash strapped, completely cash strapped. And secondly, I really think they think that this is over. And therefore, what's the point? 1 million more posters is not going to get them over the 50%. So why bother?
Now you see these comments have all been put to the ANC, who have been asked for comment. They actually had something rather interesting to say, Ramon, and that is they said that every poster that gets printed needs a maisonette board. That's the hard board behind the poster, which makes sense. And they actually said that the reason that these posters for them are not really what they want to be engaged in is because of, and I quote, a decline in industrialization in South Africa, which meant that the boards weren't actually available here. They had to be imported from abroad. They said that was very expensive and it would take a long time. So interestingly enough, they're actually literally citing the decline in the economy as the reason for them not being able to print their own boards. Which is curious because Julius Malema hasn't had this problem. In fact, he has had a different problem. and that is his party appears to have gone around and basically put up posters in areas where they're not actually allowed to put them up, such as the M1 and the M2. Now, for those of you who don't know, you're not meant to put posters on busy motorways because there's an accident hazard. So the reason the EFF in this instance appears that they can get away with it is because, lo and behold, the MNC for Public Safety is their guy. So he's just like, it's fun. It's fun. But the key important part here is the other political parties aren't moaning about deindustrialization in the same way that the ANC is. So the question then has to come back to the same point. Does the ANC just not want to win this election? Have they just given up? Because if they have, I'm okay with that. But I'd just like to know, what do you think?
They have completely lost this election. They don't care about it whatsoever. There's leaked info showing that Cyril's like really upset that that the media in this country are not very nice to the ANC. And even Fikile Mbalula came out a few days ago to say, this Jacob Zuma guy, we suspended him and now he's like the head of MK and he's beating us in court and there's nothing we can do. Just a defeatist culture has been emanating from the ANC for quite a while, and I think Zuma's really putting the screws in completely. This poster thing is an example of that, but fundamentally, when you know that the jig is over, you act in a way where you don't want to spend too many resources because you know that it won't actually make any real world effects.
Yeah, I think that's probably the most likely scenario now. Is that the ANC realizes it doesn't really matter how many of these posters they print. It's not really going to help. So rather, keep some of the war chest in the background, hold on to it for now. You might need it later, because it does look like, after the elections, the ANC are not going to be able to grift in the same way that they have in the past. Which may mean, keep hold of that war chest. You're going to need it.